Hello to my gorgeous friends on YouTube. Today we're gonna be talking about CSS. We're gonna be talking about CSS selectors. Now, the thing about selectors is that we use selectors to select different tags in HTML so that we could change those tags and just change their styling and everything, like colors, what are the positions, what are their other properties. So we're gonna be change. Now the thing about CSS selectors is that you can select literally everything that you have on HTML, like tags, elements, children's, or maybe you can just focus them and whatever. So you get my point, right? You can start selecting from the bottom or from the top or from the middle. We can start selecting from everything there is. So let's dive right into it. Now I'm gonna be going over to CSS. Over here you can see, and now today we're gonna be talking about a few of the selectors. Now let's first understand what the selectors are. Now first of all, we have it a type. This, you see this asterisk symbol. This asterisk symbol means that it's an universal selector. What's an universal selector? Basically everything that we have in HTML, and if we want to select everything, we need this asterisk symbol. Universal selector means it selects everything on the HTML page universe. Okay, and then there's the type selector, there's the class selector, ID selector, group selector, adjacent sibling selector, general sibling selector, direct child selector, now and so on. There's nesting selections, there's compound selectors and everything. There are button selectors, there are attribute selectors. And if, for example, over here we have an attribute selector. What's an attribute? An attribute is like a tag. Okay, like over here in HTML I have a tag named ul, or an unordered list, and there's obviously a pre tag, more like a paragraph tag. But this pre tag, what it does is that it keeps the general spacing and paragraphing, all of that in the same place, all of that as at just, like, over here in this paragraph I have about 4 lines of sentences, 4 lines, and these 4 lines would be placed in our website just the way I wrote them in HTML. That's what a pre-tag does. Okay, it's like displaying exactly on the web page the way I wrote it on an HTML, on this HTML page. Okay, so now the thing is, let's open it up first. Okay, now what we have here are a few things. First of all, you have this paragraph. We have 2 unordered lists. So this should be enough to explain to you how things work. Okay, in selectors. So first of all, we have this pre-tag. Now this, what is this pre-tag? This is a type selector. Okay, let's go over here. This pre-tag is a type selector. And now how do we determine if it's a type selector? Because we're just, writing the tag name. The tag name was pre. Now I can just go ahead and write in another tag name like ul. Now you see over here in pre, let's change the color before we go ahead any further. Now pre is just one thing. Okay, we're just selecting one pre tag. If there were many other pre tags, those pre tags would have been selected as well, but since we have only one pre tag, now let's change the color. Show it, let me show it to you a bit. Color red. Done. Let's refresh this. Now you can see we have this red color tag. This pre tag has changed this color to red. Now let's go to ul and change the color to what can I say, purple. Let's change the color tag to purple. I'm gonna go here and refresh. You see over here what it does is that it selects both the ULs. Now this there's 2 ULs over here, from ABC to GHI, then another UL from JKL to PQR. Now what happens is that, you see, These both UL selectors, they don't have classes. They are both UL selectors, and we're selecting UL tag, and that every unordered list or every UL we have will get selected. And this is what the type selector is. What if we wanted to change the UL tag of only this bottom UL? What if we wanted to change the style of the bottommost UL? We could simply provide it a class, and I'm gonna name it bottom. I'm also gonna add an ID to it and also name it bottom. Now over here, instead of typing UL, I could type dot bottom, and this dot over here, right? This dot actually means that it means it's the class. This dot means it's the class. Now let's refresh. Now the bottommost tag is called the class, and over here, since we selected the class only of the bottom UL we have over here, you can see the bottom UL change its color to purple, and this above the UL that we had on above, it didn't change its color, it's gone back to black. I don't know what I just said there, bro. Okay, yeah. So what if I wanted to select by using only the ID? ID is something, ID means identification, and class is basically also a way of identifying. Now both of them are used to select, both of them are used so that we could select uh, one or two things. Now over here, instead of this class tree, I'm gonna type it as an ID. Now let's go ahead and change that ID as well. All right, like I was saying, so let's select the ID. Now this ID over here is tag, means whenever I put the tag symbol, it actually means that we are actually trying to catch the IDs only. Okay, it actually means we're trying to catch the IDs only, and but still we also need to specify which ID, right? We can't go on and just type this hashtag and then write something, because CSS wouldn't know which IDs we're trying to catch. So let's go ahead, select the ID and type 3. And which ID is that? It's this over here, like list item ID 3. Now over here, I'm going to change the color of it to blue. All right, now let's go and refresh it. Over here you can see this PQR, it turned blue. Okay, that's because we're selecting the ID. Now there's one more thing, that is, after we selected bottom, why is it that at first, I mean, we already said that the bottommost UL will all have colors of purple, but it's not. It's because IDs are more valuable than classes, right? In classes, after you type classes and give it a color, and then you type an ID, CSS will prefer that ID over the class. Okay, and that's why this PQR, this entire thing over here is a class. It should have been purple, but an ID has more preference than it has more preference than classes. Okay, after that, let's hop on to the next tag, that is the group tag. Okay, so what's a group tag? Group tag is a comma. Basically, let's say I wrote all these things, right? I wrote all these things and gave it a different color. So what if I were to group them? If I were to group them, I'll just say comma dot bottom comma hashtag 3, and now I just colored it all red. Now let's see what happens. See, they all get the red color. Now even these things get the red color over here. Now you can, I don't really need this 3, okay, but you get the point. I mean, bottom is the bottommost UL. All right, so that's the group tag. Now the group tag is defined by commas. The group tags are defined by commas. Then we have adjacent siblings. Now the question is, what are adjacent siblings? Okay, and what is but before that, just come to the question, what is a sibling? A sibling is basically, you have a parent and they get kids, and those kids are siblings of one another. For example, let's say we have this UL tag. Inside this UL tag, these list items are all siblings, and they're all direct children of the UL tag. Now there's something I want to tell you. Okay, so there are sibling selectors, as well as child selectors. There are also combinator selectors. Now, what are sibling selectors and child selectors? Like I said, there are parents, and these parents get children, and those children are siblings to one another, and those parents, right? Your parents are also siblings of someone else, right? You have cousins, even cousins are siblings. So basically, let's say there's this UL tag. This UL tag is a sibling to pre-tag, and this pre-tag is also a sibling to this UL tag. So all this pre and these two UL tags are siblings to one another, and they're children of the body tag. And inside this UL, and these list items are siblings to one another, but also a child to the UL tag. Now let's go and work with that. Now let's start with adjacent siblings. So adjacent siblings, right? Now I will just type in this UL tag and type in the adjacent siblings, and then type in the list item, and after that I'm going to change the color to green. And now let's go after I saved it. All right, so basically, okay, so here's the thing. This Ella is actually a child to that sibling. So let's type in a different thing. Like over here, I gotta be placing siblings only. Okay, to use the siblings tag, I gotta be placing this the siblings only the siblings. Over here I have this pre and this UL. So this pre and this UL is a sibling to the body selector. Now what it does, that it checks whether or not both of them are siblings, and then they just change the color to green. Refresh, and there you go. You have a yeah. So what if I wanted to select both the ULs? I could just put in a comma and then go ahead and select the UL, and there you go. Now what I did here is that, like I said, this comma is actually a group. What is it? It's a group selector. Now what happens is that when I use this plus, right, plus sign, so UL is basically a direct sibling to pre-tag. What do I mean by that? It means after you have the first over here, we place on we type in the first pre-tag, okay, and then first pre-tag, which is this pre-tag is actually a child to body, but it's also a sibling to the UL, so they will go in a chronological manner. Okay, a chronological manner, or maybe let's say okay, let's just go with the point, or like there, who has more preference. Okay, now the first child has more preference over the second child. Okay, so this UL will come after this pre-tag, and the next UL we could just group it out. Now I'm gonna refresh. Now what if I just delete this first UL thing and refresh it? You will see the first UL will only get colored, and then the next UL that gets colored too. Now let's make another UL. So it had I will just say it's a bot. I will have to change the color class name as well. PQR STU VWX Y and Z. Okay, class 123. I'm gonna just change it to ID. I'm gonna change it to ID, and this 3 I'm gonna change it to class, so that it's actually different from what I had before this. Now I'm gonna save it, and then I'm gonna refresh this. See, Now after I come, now you can see everything is green right now. We have 3 ULs and all of them are green. Okay, so what happens is that this first UL is actually the first ever unordered list that comes after pre, and after I put comma and then use another UL, it means that's actually the rest of the ULs that actually come up after the first UL we selected after the pre tag. Okay, now the second UL is used to come up with all UL there is, and the first UL is actually to make sure that that UL comes after the pre tag. It's not that hard. It's just a matter of preference. Just understand the preference. The preference of the second UL is actually all of the ULs that exist, and the preference of the first UL is actually if it's actually after the if it's actually a direct sibling which comes after the sibling that's before, which is the pre tag. Okay, so what if let's check something else. Let's check this one. Now what you see is that after this pre after the we used two adjacent siblings. Okay, so after this ul tag, right, this there's this plus sign, pre plus ul. So this ul is actually comes up it actually comes after the pre, but now I want to color the next ul that comes after the first ul, so I again use the ascendant as adjacent sibling selector, and voila, there you have. That's how adjacent siblings work. I'm gonna just keep it right here. So no, I'm gonna delete this. Just keep it in mind or take a screenshot or whatever. Okay, so let's go with the general sibling selector next. All right, now let's go with the general sibling selector. What's this general sibling selector? Now what we had was the adjacent sibling selector, right? So it's like an adjacent. The ul is the adjacent to pre-tag, and then you have the general sibling, which is actually adjacent to the it's not adjacent anymore, it's just a matter of generalization, right? So we have over here 3 ul tags. Now if I select the here's the pre-tag, and then here's the that's the general sibling selector, and then there's this ul. After that I'm just gonna say color red. Now let's see what happens. Everything gets selected. Now why is it? It's simple. It's because inside this ul all colors will mean that it's a general sibling selector. They're just checking if ul is a sibling to pre. Yes or no? Yes. ul is actually a general sibling to pre, right? That's how it is. If ul is a sibling to pre, it doesn't matter where the ul is. Even if it was after 300 more tags, they would still color it red because it's a sibling to pre. It doesn't matter whether it comes first. Like in the adjacent sibling, you had to make sure that it came actually after the pre tag, which means if it did, then it would be the adjacent sibling. But in generalization, we're like if these guys are siblings, not doesn't matter if they're the first sibling or the second sibling or the third sibling, they're just siblings. So done. Let's just change and style it later. Now let's go ahead to the direct child sibling. I'm gonna save it and see what happens. Oh, nothing. All right, so okay, we're talking about direct child. What it Oh yeah, it's a child, my bad. This is no more a sibling. We're talking about direct child. So I'm gonna have to go and select the parent of this UL. The parent of this UL is actually body, right? The body tag is actually, yeah. Now every single UL tag that comes inside the body is actually a sibling to one another, and they're all direct children of the body, so they all get colored, right? They all get styled the way they have to get styled, right? And then we have the descendant combinator. Now, what is a descendant combinator? That's actually the most plain basics over here we're talking about. Now let's just make two things, and we're gonna put in a space. We're gonna refresh it and see what happens. So now we have this ul and li. So it's a direct combinator. They check, they act, okay, so what's a descendant combinator? It actually checks whether or not the latter tag is actually a descendant of the previous tag. Okay, now this list item is actually a ladder tag. It is a descendant of ul. So let's refresh. Now you can see all the list items have been stylized inside the ul. Everything that comes inside, or that comes later to the ul, or a descendant to the ul, or a descendant of the first tag over here, they all get stylized differently. I mean, whatever, however you want it, actually, however you want to stylize them. So that's actually the descendant. Now let's show you one more. Let's show you one more thing. What if we wanted every descendant of the body tag? Yeah, simply just on the body tag, give it a space, and then type ul. Now I'm gonna over here select pre, and then I'm gonna also go ahead and add ul, and I'm gonna have to change the color to I don't know, let's take a cool good looking, let's take a good looking blue color. uh, that's not blue, that's actually purple. Yeah, okay, now that's good. Now go ahead and refresh it. Okay, so that doesn't look it that way. All right, so the pre tag that comes after the body tag gets selected. Now I'm gonna place a comma and type in ul. Okay, and I'm gonna type in ul and see what happens. Everything gets colored. Okay, so that's how it is. Now what is it? You know that comma is actually the group tag, right? So over here on the right side we have pre and ul in a group, and on the left side we have a body, but we use the descendant select of the body. So basically the pre tag and the ul tag that are groups and is a descendant to another tag will all get colored blue, will all get stylized differently. You get my point, right? So yeah, that's more like it. So let's just say this is all for today. Let's make another video later. This is just part one. I'm gonna be making three parts of the selector thingy. I mean, over here you can just take a screenshot of all these. Take a screenshot of all these selectors that you have. They will come in handy. So this is the first video. We're gonna make another video later on, and bye bye, have a good day. Don't forget to like, comment or share and subscribe.